So, I'm recording this video. For the record, you guys are watching 2K17 gameplay with the Revival facing off against the Hollywood Blondes in what was a pretty good tag team match. And I'm recording this video here today because I feel like this is something that has been on my mind a lot the last couple of years, especially around this time. Now, as we all know, in a couple short weeks, we have WrestleMania coming up. WrestleMania 37, I guess. I mean, I really don't consider last year's WrestleMania to be a WrestleMania, but if we're going by numbers here, it's WrestleMania 37. And I don't know what it is over the last several years of me being a wrestling fan, but even when I wasn't watching WWE's programming regularly, I always watched WrestleMania because I cared about, could you miss the biggest wrestling show in the history of wrestling shows, right? At least that was my thought process. And when I wasn't watching the product, it seems as though, for some strange reason, that the builds to WrestleMania progressively got worse and worse and worse as time went on. And I don't know what that is. I mean, I feel like, especially now, the builds for certain storylines are just super inconsistent now. And it's so inconsistent to the fact where it's like, it doesn't feel like WrestleMania season, if I dare speak those words. There's so little hype around certain things that it's like, why am I going to care that this is on the biggest wrestling show in the world? Not even of the year, in the world and of the year. Think of it like this. On SmackDown, everything on paper is sort of taking shape. You know, we have Edge obviously facing off against either Roman or Daniel Bryan come after Fastlane. My best guess is that this is going to turn into a triple threat of some sort. I don't know. And then we have Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks for the Women's Championship on SmackDown, which, for some reason, the build sells itself, but for some reason they want to gussy it all up with a bunch of bullshit like the Reginald stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love Reginald. I think the guy is fucking great. I think he's super athletic, and I'm incredibly jealous of everything that he does for a man that size and that much of athleticism. But I feel like a lot of this stuff with the tag team titles, the tag team title stuff I can understand, but everything around that just bothers me to an extent. And and there's probably some other stories that are more likely going to take shape as the weeks go on, like potential of Seth Rollins versus Cesaro, and what will probably be an epic wrestling fucking, I don't even know what the word I can use for that is. Just like an epic clinic. A clinic would be a word I would use. And then we go to Raw. Now, I haven't seen, I'm recording this on Tuesday. I have not seen last night's Raw yet, so I don't know what's going on, but I do know roughly some of the matches that have been released, or have been announced, I should say. And one of those is Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Now, I've seen that match before when they were both in TNA, or now known as Impact, but when they were in TNA, I've seen that match already, and I just can't help but feel like it needs something more to it, and I guess they couldn't get Brock Lesnar. And if they can't get Brock Lesnar come Fastlane, I don't see why that can't be a triple threat match. I think adding Brock in the match and having Lashley go over in the end would be the best choice to build this matchup, because I feel like there's not really a lot of star power, to be honest with you, in terms of maybe nostalgic star power going into this show. And then we have the whole thing with the tag team championships with New Day and the Hurt Business, which I don't know why they're hot potatoing the tag team championships. I find it to be, let's be honest, this whole fucking splitting the brands tag team championships to me has gotten old at this point. I think they should just keep the brand split, but keep champions on certain shows for a certain amount of time. I don't understand why they can't just bring together the tag team divisions, because if anything, this whole build with the tag team championships only screams that there's no division on Raw, or very little of one. Same thing with SmackDown, I would argue, but I think SmackDown's is slightly more developed. And maybe that's just me being biased, but based on what I've seen with certain teams, I just feel like there's a lot more going on with certain teams on SmackDown than there are with teams on Raw. Granted, all we see is the New Day and the Hurt Business all the time. Even Xavier Woods at one point said, "Oh my God, we gotta face these guys again," or something like that. Like, give other guys a chance. And that's the thing. I don't even know who else is in the tag team division on Raw. So they gotta make a unification fucking match at some point. I'm over it at this point, if I'm being honest with you. And then the Women's Championship, which I don't know what the fuck Asuka's doing. Obviously, the whole thing with Lacey Evans blew up in WWE's face because she had to go get pregnant, which, congratulations to her. But that's besides the point. The point I'm trying to make is this whole storyline that was probably going to build towards Charlotte winning the title again is now gone down the tubes in some way, shape, and form. I don't know. I just feel like Raw's booking has been an absolute fucking clusterfuck, and I haven't even gotten to Shane McMahon and Braun Strowman. Let's be honest. Is there any interest in Shane McMahon facing Braun Strowman at WrestleMania? If you tell me you have some interest in that, I might think you're lying. I'm going to find it hard to actually believe that those words came out of your mouth and that you actually believe those words, that you're actually looking forward to this. I got nothing against Braun Strowman or Shane McMahon individually. I mean, granted, I don't think Shane McMahon needs to be on WWE television anymore. I think that time has passed, and it definitely passed over the last few years that he was on the TV and being involved in matches. I just think what could he possibly do at this point? What sort of shock factor stunt could he possibly pull off in a man that's damn past 50 years old at this point? Like, come on. And Braun, let's be honest, Braun's not on everyone's good side right now in terms of in terms of being over, I guess you can say. I mean, the guy's fucking massive. He can work, and that's awesome. I mean, I like Braun Strowman as a wrestler and stuff, but for some reason over the last couple of years, I feel like WWE has just damaged him to the point where I just don't care about what Braun Strowman does. Even when he won the Universal Championship at WrestleMania, which again I didn't watch WrestleMania last year, so obviously he was put in because Roman couldn't work. But I just feel like I was like, okay, he's the champion now. I don't care because the time for that has passed for 2 or 3 years already. So I don't know. I just feel like the builds for WrestleManias have just been really lackluster. When I started watching wrestling in 2010 after the Royal Rumble, or at least that's when I started to really pay attention to it after the Royal Rumble, I remember the builds being super crazy. We had the whole thing with Shawn and Taker 2 at WrestleMania 26. And then we had the whole deal with Edge and Chris Jericho were on SmackDown. And then a bunch of, I don't remember too much more other than that. But there were a couple other matches I think they were building towards that were pretty good. The whole thing with, what was it, Bret Hart. And even though the match I heard sucked, I didn't watch pay-per-views at that point in time. But even with the Bret Hart and Vince McMahon thing, the whole thing with John Cena and Batista, that would be the start of their 3-month feud or so. What else was there? And then we go into WrestleMania 27 with The Rock building the whole pay-per-view, and the stuff with The Miz, and the stuff with John Cena, and the stuff with Miz and Rock that would build into next year's WrestleMania. I mean, let's be honest. WrestleMania 27's or 28's build started a year in advance, and they touched on it here and there periodically throughout the course of that year with John Cena and The Rock. And of course they started building other matches around the time they usually start building matches. But that whole hype for the show came in a whole year in advance. And everyone was excited about that match. I was excited about match because I didn't like John Cena, and I wanted Rock to beat his ass. And he did, and I was happy about it. I don't know, the magic of what a WrestleMania build is, to my memory, and maybe I'm looking at this through rose-colored glasses, but the magic of the WrestleMania build over the last 3 or 4 years has just been insanely lackluster. I think the last WrestleMania I was ever truly hyped for was WrestleMania 31 what was that, Santa Clara in Levi Stadium. That was a fucking overall great show to me. I really enjoyed it. The build was spectacular, in my opinion. I thought it was super fun. with Sting and Triple H and Roman and Brock and Seth and Randy Orton. So many different matches that were occurring on that show that I was really hyped for through the build. And then WrestleMania 32 came around, and yeah, I was excited for a couple of matches, and that's more or less, and then a year later at the Royal Rumble in 2017, that's when I stopped watching wrestling, but I always knew what was going on, but I remember the builds weren't all that exciting. At least that's from what I understood online, that the builds weren't all that exciting. And, I read everything that goes on, so I'm sitting here like, God, this is just a bad idea. Or this is just like a lackluster idea. I think the last time there was ever really a truly great WrestleMania build to a match was Kofi Mania. Because Kofi Mania started so... that happened so organically that it had, Daniel Bryan vibes to it. And it reminded me of really good times being a wrestling fan. Because I remember the Daniel Bryan storyline in WrestleMania, going into WrestleMania 30 was so much fun. So great, and they captured it again with Kofi Mania, and I admit I cried when Kofi won the championship. I was fucking happy, and or the few times I've ever cried during a wrestling show. But that was one time where I was really happy because that was one of the storylines I had followed online, start to finish, where I was like, holy shit, this is happening. And of course, even the women's main event at WrestleMania was enough to build WrestleMania 35 in itself. That was probably, I think 35 had a pretty decent build in some regards, so I can't shit on that one too much, but you get the point I'm trying to make, more or less. I don't know, to me, so far this year, I mean, considering now we have this whole ordeal with Fastlane coming up on Sunday, which I don't think needs to happen. I think the fact that Fastlane being on the show is completely pointless. I don't see why WWE has to add another pay-per-view with 3 weeks left of WrestleMania. I just feel like there's no build to WrestleMania now because they're focusing so much on even building a card for Fastlane that they're completely not paying attention to what WrestleMania is, to what's going on with WrestleMania. So that bothers me too, really badly. I don't know. Especially because Fastlane just looks so lackluster on paper. Outside of SmackDown and what's going on with that, WrestleMania on paper, or Fastlane on paper, is lackluster as fuck. And WrestleMania, in a lot of regards, is the builds are looking lackluster to the point where I don't give a shit about certain matches happening on the card. Again, Brock and Shane, don't care. And even matches that sell themselves are becoming overcomplicated and overbooked. And I think that's something that a lot of people, when they talk about the overbooking of WrestleMania and stuff, they look back to what happened with the women's main event and how Charlotte didn't need to be included in there and all that stuff. And I would agree with them. And I mean, even the match itself to me wasn't really the greatest thing I'd ever seen. I was happy for everyone there, but I was like, this match is not great. It's not memorable to me. I mean, the moment was memorable. The match itself to me wasn't. So, and I think that was because they overcomplicated it in a lot of regards with Charlotte being added in there, and there was another dynamic that, probably complicated things further. So, I don't know. It just, to me, the build, it doesn't feel like a WrestleMania season with the builds going on right now, because I think, to sum it all up, Fastlane shouldn't be happening, and it's taking away from the hype of WrestleMania. And the builds themselves on on specifically Raw are not good in any way, shape, and form. So that's all I gotta say about that, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I can't be the only person feeling this way. I doubt I'm the only person feeling this way, but I'd like to know what you think down in the comment section below. Of course, check me out on all social media stuff you see down in the description below. And of course, subscribe and listen to the 69 Whiskey Podcast. I will see you all in the next one. Have a great day, and peace out.